Title: Muslim_Jinn. Writer: Soha_Tapson. Episode 3. One day, Janvi was sitting in her room when suddenly, out of nowhere, a black shadowy figure appeared, staring at her angrily. Janvi was terrified. This is the same creature from my dreams, she thought. The figure continued to stare at her when suddenly, a faint sound of the Adhan Islamic call to prayer started coming from a distance. The creature immediately jumped out of the window. Janvi panicked. Did it just die jumping from such a height? She rushed to the window to look outside but saw nothing. Just then, as the Adhan echoed in her ears, she felt an unexplainable calmness washing over her. It was as if an unseen force was compelling her to listen. If just listening to the Adhan is this peaceful, how peaceful would it be to actually pray? She wondered, but then she suddenly shook her head. What am I thinking? If Papa finds out, he will strangle me. How can I even think about another religion? She forcefully pushed the thought out of her mind and sat back on her bed. She no longer enjoyed talking to her friends. They all seemed distant and unimportant to her now. Janvi's parents constantly encouraged her to go out, have fun, and behave like before. But she refused every time. One day, her mother entered her room for something and was shocked beyond words. Oh, Lord Ram! What sin have you committed, Janvi? Her mother clutched her head in horror. Janvi was sitting in her room, eating fried beef. Her mother rushed to her, snatched the plate, and threw it out of the window. She then hurriedly sprayed air freshener to remove the smell. Do you even realize what a grave sin you have committed? She scolded angrily. But Janvi was even angrier. Her eyes were blazing red. Why did you throw my food? She roared in a deep, masculine voice. Her mother staggered back in fear. Janvi started throwing things around the room in a blind rage. Janvi! Her mother called out hesitantly. Janvi suddenly froze. Her vision cleared and she looked around at the mess she had created. Shocked and confused, without saying a word, her mother quickly left the room. Janvi sat down, trembling. What is happening to me? Why am I acting like this? She couldn't understand anything. Tears welled up in her eyes as she sobbed in confusion. Sonita, Janvi's mother, sprinkled Ganga water all over the house, performed rituals and prayed for her daughter. She was deeply worried. That night, when Shankar, Janvi's father, returned home, he found Sonita sitting in deep thought. What's wrong, Sonita? Why do you look so worried? He asked, sitting beside her. She hesitated. Should she tell him? If Shankar found out that Janvi had eaten beef inside their house, he would be furious. Lost in thought, Sonita didn't realize Shankar was snapping his fingers in front of her face. And no, it's nothing, she stammered. If something is bothering you, tell me, he insisted. No, really, it's nothing. I'll get your dinner, she quickly said and rushed to the kitchen. Shankar didn't press further, but his instincts told him something was wrong. Sonita decided to take Janvi to a doctor. The next morning, she took her for a checkup. But the doctor found nothing unusual. Your daughter is completely healthy, the doctor assured her. Still, to satisfy Sonita, he prescribed some tests. When the test reports also came back clear, Sonita was even more confused. If there was no medical issue, then why was Janvi behaving like this? That night, Janvi was sleeping when she suddenly woke up to a strange noise. She tried to understand what was that sound. It seemed like running water. Maybe someone left a tap open, she thought as she got up and walked to the bathroom. But when she checked, all the taps were tightly closed. As she turned to go back to her room, a shadowy human figure rushed past behind her. Janvi froze. Her eyes widened in horror. Slowly, she turned around. Her breath caught in her throat. Standing in the bathroom was their driver, his burnt, charred corpse staring straight at her. Janvi let out a blood-curdling scream and ran to her room, desperately trying to open the door. But the door wouldn't budge. She started banging it, crying. Mama. Papa. She sobbed, calling out for help. After a long moment, she realized the burnt corpse hadn't followed her. Trembling, she slowly turned back towards the bathroom. The body was gone. There was no one there. Janvi gasped for air, unable to comprehend what had just happened. A cold gust of wind suddenly blew through the room. Janvi's body stiffened. The chilling wind entered her. Her vision blurred, her limbs went numb. And she collapsed unconscious on the floor, to be continued.